So you have a 300 series and you want to enhance it. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you from start to finish what you guys need to know and the frequently asked questions around this model of car. We get a lot of frequently asked questions, anything from changing your oil all the way up to does this affect my warranty? Well, in this video, we're going to show you what we're doing in the process and also aftercare with this vehicle and what you need to know. So in this first section, we're going to go through what you guys need to know before booking the car in with Just Autos and what you guys need to do to prepare to coming to us. First question we get asked a lot is, how do I prep my vehicle ready to come into Just Autos? Well, the first things first, but your maintenance is very important to us. So making sure the car has been well maintained is critical for the outcome that we're going to do here. Every car that comes to Just Autos will go through a pre-dyno inspection where we inspect the car out to make sure that servicing has been done correctly in the areas that we require to make sure we can do our job efficiently. So what we require from your car is to be mechanically sound and also clean. It's a really big thing. If you've been out for driving the day before and there's mud everywhere, we really don't want to have that all over the car. Not only does it make it hard for us to do our job, is that mud covering everything is just not ideal for our situations. We try and be very respectful and clean in our workshop and make sure we can have that at that higher standard. Let's talk about tyres. Should I change my wheel and tyre combo back to the standard to come in for the dyno tuning, or is it okay to run the larger tyres and wheels on my car? I guess the answer to that question is it's okay to run whatever wheel and tyre combo you would like. It will, however, change the output of power on the dyno as a number, but it doesn't change the overall power that the engine is producing. So it's nothing to be concerned about that. And the way that we tune for all load areas, so it's not going to be concerned for if you do put 35-inch tyres on your car or you go back and vice versa, you don't have to get your car retuned around that. So it's perfectly fine. Whatever you feel as though you're comfortable with having on your car, we're more than happy to dyno with those wheels. One of the biggest hit questions that we get asked on a regular basis, does this affect my manufacturer's warranty? Any modification you do to your vehicle, it doesn't matter what it is, there is always a possibility that it's going to affect your manufacturer's warranty. And more than ever, our cars are getting larger and bigger and more powerful. So with that in mind, a lot of the time the warranty will not be covered under your manufacturer's warranty. Can I put my car back to standard? Well, yes, anything can be put back to standard. We have the ability now with EasyTune to send our customers out with a dongle, and we can actually put your ECU back to standard from the comfort of your own home. I guess the question comes together, why are we doing this and what's the reasoning around it? So if there's a problem or there's an issue, by all means, get in contact with us and we'll be more than happy to talk about any of your concerns. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about aftermarket modifications and if you require them on your vehicles or not. Catch cans. Do we need catch cans? Well, the short answer is no, you don't require a catch can. However, a lot of people are coming in nowadays with catch cans and they're being sold catch cans on the faith of if you don't have one, you're going to have problems. Now, if you have your EGR system, where the EGR, the exhaust gas recirculating system, is still in full function on your car, well then we do advise that that's probably the best way to avoid having clogged up manifolds over time. However, when we have the cars here at Just Autos, we are disabling that system, so therefore you're not getting that build up over time and don't have that problem. The biggest thing about catch cans we see is usually they're not getting emptied on servicing, which can cause problems with the engine, inducing a lot of oil and therefore making it very smoky and unpleasant to drive. Also, we find that with a lot of catch cans, the way that they're fitted, and if the valving fails inside the catch cans, they can pressurize the system and cause more leaks with seals leaking and rocker covers leaking and a whole lot of range of different things. So what we advise is the most simplest way forward, and that is doing what the manufacturer has done from day one and keeping that system in a recirculating system that it currently is. We don't have a problem with that. We find that's the most reliable way to be, is keeping it as simple as possible. Do I need a secondary fuel filter on my car? Well, this is a question that I get a lot, and a lot of people are surprised by my answers around this. And I guess the answer to the question that everyone's looking for is no, you don't need a secondary fuel filter. My advice is to replace your factory filter frequently, and if you can do that every service, well then that's a fantastic way to go. I guess the reason why I don't like secondary fuel filters is because putting a restriction in line on a lot of our common rail systems only allows our pump to get hotter and the fuel to get hotter over time and causes problems. And this is to do with cavitation, which is a whole nother story you around this subject. But as far as the foreign matter goes, the factory filter works extremely well. Remember, a lot of the buildup that you are seeing in your filters, and especially the black filters, are actually to do with asphalt and got nothing to do with the dirt that's in the fuel. It's to do with the refinery process. And that is because diesel in our common rails is running around that 110 degrees on the return side back to the tank. And over time, it splits this diesel, and the byproduct of that is asphalt. And unfortunately, that's the black stuff that you are seeing in your filter. So there's a lot more information we have online about this. However, if you do have a secondary fuel filter, we recommend that you guys change it to a 30 micron filter pre-filter, and don't have it as an after filter down to a 5 or a 12. And at the end of the day, we recommend to leave the factory alone and don't do any more with it from there. Do I need to run boost gauges and EGTs or scan gauges? Well, I guess around those questions is they're always good to monitor things. I never take that away from you guys wanting to have a look at the information, the data. I love data, and I think it's a great idea to look at. However, if you don't know what you're looking at or you don't have a baseline, that data can make you go down a rabbit hole and look at things a lot differently, and also give you something else to concentrate on or worry about, which may not even need to be there. So my question is to you is that around that is, why are you putting on these gauges? Is it to do with looking at for more safety? However, these factory ECUs and a lot of the software that we're putting into these ECUs are there to do that job for you. So you don't have to monitor gauges, you don't have to monitor temperatures. We are controlling that system for you. You are paying us for our expertise and our advice to make sure that that is set up correctly for what you are doing. However, having a scan gauge, which allows you to read data, but also has the function of reading codes and clearing codes and a whole lot of range of stuff that you can do with them, are an awesome bit of gear and a handy bit of gear to have if you can't get in contact with one of us or you're stuck somewhere. In this section, we're going to be talking about the modifications that we're bolting onto your vehicle and the effects they have. You got yourself a 300 series and you're inquiring about the upgraded airbox and the heat exchanger. These are two things that we get asked a lot about, and I'm just going to show you some reasoning around why we do these two things. The first thing is you've got to keep in mind we're trying to reduce intake temperature. And by reducing the restriction into the turbo and also increasing that airflow with our intake pipe, as well as the snorkel and an airbox, we can reduce the intake temperatures that we run at a certain boost pressure. And this is critical to maintaining power for long periods of time. The great thing about the heat exchanger means that we can add more volume of water, so our cooling efficiency has gone up also. So these two things done in conjunction make a massive difference to overall intake temperatures. This means not only more power, but more power for longer, especially when you're towing on those very hot days. These modifications come in hand in massive ways in these particular forms. So this is why we have them in our packages, because we highly recommend doing these things to ensure reliability as you're towing and touring Australia. Transmission lockup kits for your 300 series. Well, if you had a 200 series before or other models of cars, you would have had either a mechanical or a software updated lockup kit. And in the 300 series, being a 10-speed transmission, we kind of need the same thing, but we have built this into our version 3.1 and 3.0 multi-mapping. And what this means when you're driving in manual mode, you have the converter staying locked up, which reduces your overall transmission temperatures. I guess the question that we get asked in this is, do you need a transmission cooler and is it beneficial? Well, yes, look, at the end of the day, if you're traveling with huge loads and you are in the north region of this country, then I do believe a transmission cooler is a positive to have. However, what we recommend is that if you are driving in the southern ends, you're probably not going to need it. However, we are looking at doing something with the transmission at the moment, but I'll keep you updated as we go through that. How does tuning affect the temperature of my vehicle? Well, you have to keep in mind that you are tuning your 300 series now and you're adding on these functions. And one of the main reasons why we talked about the airbox and the heat exchanger was when we add more power, we're creating more heat, and we're trying to maintain this heat with the extra load you're putting on the car, not only the extra weight that you are towing and carrying the vehicle now. So we have to be mindful of this. And that is why we built so much protection into our multi-mapping in our 3.1 and 3.0 version multi-mapping. Do I need an exhaust for my 300 series? It's a really good question. The exhaust system on the 300 series is actually fairly adequate in size. The problem is with that is usually the other emission control devices that are in there, like our DPF, that do restrict a fair bit of power from this vehicle. Not only that, they do aid in having problems that can lead to unreliability and other concerns based around that. So our recommendations for reliability is to replace the exhaust system. DPF back systems are great and will give you a small gain, but overall are there for mainly mainly looks and not going to give you the expectations that a full exhaust system will. Do we still offer single remaps? Yes, for the 300 series, we can still offer a single remap. However, we find majority of our customers are going for the multi-mapping, and for good reason. And the reasons behind that is the versatility to change between different maps for different circumstances, and you have the power to do that at your fingertips, on the fly, whenever you like. Obviously, with a single remap, we just don't have that versatility. However, a lot of the safety functions are still built into the single map as they are in the multi-mapping. You're just not getting all the other functions that come with the multi-map. Do I need an intake pipe for my 300 series? Well, we designed this pipe and spent a lot of time on it, and the design around this pipe was to solve a surging issue that is pronounced in the 300 series. And the great news is this pipe is a very good fixture for that. It doesn't solve it 100%, but it's about 90% solved, and with some software changes, we can make it a lot pleasurable to drive without that terrible noise that keeps on happening along the way. So yes, an intake pipe not only helps with the surge, but gives us a very large percentage change between the two turbos when they change over, and that is something that you'll notice as driving the car. When do I need to add a sump to my 300 series engine? Well, it's a very good question. I guess the answer to that question would be, if you're starting to push your GVM and your weight is high, we definitely do recommend it. Having a higher volume of oil means less chance of all the oil degrading to a certain point where it's going to be damaging to your vehicle, but also gives you a little bit of headroom as the car uses a bit of oil, that you know you've got that headroom in there where that car is going to maintain that oil level. Plastic versus stainless in snorkels. Okay, it's a really big question. Again, there is nothing wrong with either one. It's an option of choice that you decide to have on your car and the look that you are going for. As far as airflow goes, a lot of these pipes that we're running on these cars are more than adequate to flow the amount of air for these engines. I like the Safari snorkel. I think it fits amazing to the car. I like that plastic look, and I like how, you know, they're very seamless. The stainless steel snorkels are still a really good option, and at the moment on a lot of the newer cars, there isn't an option to go to a plastic one at this point in time. They usually come later in date. But again, there's no real difference there. That's a preference. I guess the only thing to be aware of is, depending on what snorkel you're going for, it's the size that you're going into the airbox and making sure the airbox is adequate enough for that size of snorkel. In this last section, we are talking about aftercare and servicing of your vehicle. Servicing and maintaining my car after being at Just Autos with an enhancement. Well, you've got to consider that now you have an increase in power, which is also going to lead to an increase in temperature. And this means that servicing under your severe maintenance condition, because you are towing usually more weight and you have this increase in power with increased heat, our service condition is going to be more frequent than it was before. So this is to be mindful. The great news is that yes, Toyota can still service your vehicle if that is the provider that you're using to get your car serviced. Any other mechanic can definitely do these jobs as well. However, we do recommend following their handbook and listening to Toyota's severe condition servicing. What oil should I be running my vehicle after enhancements at Just Autos? Well, the key thing here is to remember is that because we've increased power, heat, and also you'll probably be towing more weight, you have to be considerate is that now that we're doing a severe service condition, is that the oil weight is going to change. Toyota set a lot of these vehicles up to have a certain frame line in for what oils need to be used in these vehicles. And now that we've enhanced them, we need to look at the oils to use to make sure that they protect the car, and the longevity of these vehicles are going to be proven within time and time again. So I recommend you guys talking to our service team on checkout, and they can recommend the correct oil for you. How often should I get my vehicle tuned? Well, I guess the answer to that question would be, you shouldn't have to get the car retuned for the life of the vehicle as long as it's been maintained correctly and there's no problems. If you find you have issues down the track where you have to put a new set of turbos or a new set of injectors, I highly recommend you get the car checked. And this is because a lot of our fueling and boost levels and targets will change accordingly to that vehicle. It also means that with here at Just Autos, if you have tunes done with us and you're within a certain amount of time, we offer updates done for free, and we're always releasing new updates and new software for these vehicles as we progress through the years and find new things and better things to improve on. What fuel do I put in my car? This is a really broad question, and depending on the areas you are. I always like big chains and service stations that have a very reputable brand name. You're always pretty much guaranteed to get quality fuel at these places. The question would be around some of these places you have things like ultimate diesel and just plain old diesel and the differences between them. I haven't seen any real benefits for running a more refined diesel. I'm sure it's cleaner and it 100% may have less matter, or it's gone through the refinery process a lot better. But as far as giving you more power or any of these things, that is a huge debatable thing, and I don't think it's worthwhile putting that in there for those needs. If you are servicing your vehicle regularly with changing fuel filters regularly, I don't think there's a need to be running a premium diesel in your vehicle. How does tuning affect longevity of my engine? The biggest thing around here, like the two other questions, is it's all around maintenance and maintaining your vehicle and making sure that you're very strict with how you maintain your vehicle and look after it. If you look after your car, it will look after you. Yes, adding more power is always going to put more load on all components. However, if it's maintained and it's been looked after, there is no reason you can't do very high kilometers in these motors without any problems.